Aloha and welcome all of you to our first telecourse for our most fulfilling pregnancy, childbirth, and women/motherhood experience possible. I have a few things to discuss with you before we get into the material, and I apologize for any slip-ups or if it's difficult to hear or anything. I've been really trying to get the video to work well, and I've had to resort to something that's not ideal, but I really just want to get the information out there more than anything. And so this is really what it's all about, is just sharing our experience and learning together and growing together. And I know I love learning from other people, especially in this field, so just feel free to enjoy at your own pace. And I want to really kind of cover what each telecourse is going to offer. At the beginning, if you look at the organization website, lovingbirthorganization.org, it will have a section that says telecourse on it, and if you click on that and you scroll down, it will share a lot of the information. It's pretty much the whole telecourse minus some of the videos. So each gathering will have a song and then a kind of assigned reading if you'd like to read along with Sunlight for a Rainbow. And then it will have a handout, which mine has notes all over it, but a handout for you that you can upload and you can look at, which offers 3 different activities. And in each session we're going to kind of go through the activities so that you have a really good understanding of how they work, and you can just really kind of deepen into these practices in your own time, and you'll be able to benefit from them immensely, since you'll have an idea of how they work. And so yeah, I'm going to read a little bit from the book, and then we'll go through the activities pretty quickly, and then I'll share my own project, which I'll have to run and get, and I'd love to see yours as well. If you want to share them, you're welcome to email them to my website. So the first song that we had was Fly Like an Eagle, a really old school song I hadn't heard in so long, and then I was hearing it everywhere, and it was such an ideal song for the first one. You know, time keeps on slipping into the future. It's kind of all about this mental realm that we enter, and then it goes into really profound, you know, lyrics saying, feed the babies that don't have enough to eat, clothe the children, you know, house the people living on the streets. And so it really kind of expands it into, you know, it's not just about this mental psychological space. There's so much more to life. There's so much more that we can be helping, and even though our life can sometimes seem so small, there's really such an amazing job that we have as women generally, but especially if we are entering motherhood, to really set a solid foundation through honest living and effective use of our minds, and really wanting, you know, to contribute to the new world that will be forming for our children and our children's children even. So each session starts with a little poem. This one is, even if our fear is as dark as night, we are unmoved in our confidence. We trust in the goodness of life, offering our hearts and minds to our growing baby. So that's just a little poem that came, and then a drawing that came for this session. And it really is just like we were talking about, just really offering ourselves to the nourishment of something greater than us, and really kind of stepping into that way of being of service, instead of being caught up in our own psychological concerns, when, you know, I know they can feel so overwhelming, but in reality there's so much more going on this planet that needs to be focused on. And so when we effectively use our minds, there's so much more benefit that can be seen from this, and this is really the point of this telecourse. So I'll read a little bit from chapter 2 of Sunlight for a Rainbow. This is right when I found out that I was pregnant, and I shared a little bit about how I was living and about how I was realizing that even though I was living in the healthiest way that I thought was possible during my pregnancy, I was still noticing some psychological and mental tendencies that felt really unhealthy, and that I was realizing that true health really came from kind of trying to understand where are these fears coming from, how do I move beyond them. And so here's a little bit about that. I say, I can't believe I have a baby forming inside of me. Every inch of my body tingles with excitement. Is it finally happening? Whenever I think about becoming a mother, I still feel anxious though. I have insecurities about not knowing enough, or not being strong enough, or not having enough patience to raise a child. On top of that, I'm absolutely terrified of giving birth, fearing the physical pain and potential death that seem coupled with it. I make myself sick with never-ending uncertainties and worry. However, I'm quick to see this timidity as a reflection of my own feelings of unworthiness and self-doubt, which I have believed for my entire life. As this new being grows inside of my womb, it challenges all aspects of me that I've been trying to ignore for so long. It brings up the deepest fears I've ever experienced and shatters every idea I have about myself and life in general. So, I'm going to stop here and just talk a little bit about this, because even before we're pregnant, before we become mothers, we have the tendency to grab onto thoughts and identify with fearful thinking. And we can, if we're very aware of our bodies, we can feel the immediate response in our bodies of that. And so we already potentially had that tendency, and thus we've completely, moved beyond that. And if that's the case, then that's wonderful. You can really use your mind in a completely different way if that's part of it is kind of understood. But what I've realized is there are a few things to do with fear when it arises. It's really, it comes up, it seems, because there's so much unknown. It feels like if there weren't unknown, then we probably wouldn't have fear. If we had a complete, plan that we knew was going to happen exactly as we wanted, and it might be really, really smooth, and we might never have fear. But that's just not the way our lives happen. We have so much mystery and so much unknown and so much magic, and it's adventurous and it's fun, and it also can be really terrifying, especially when we're bringing new beings into the world and we want to really have a sense of security and a sense of solidity that we can depend upon and that we can share with them. And so what I found is that either we need to focus on things that are known when we feel afraid, and we'll do an activity in a minute that will be an example of that. Or we need to just really put all of our trust and all of our faith in something greater than ourselves, and just really open and feel safe in ourselves and in this world, and which can be very difficult. And that can be a complete destroyer of fear just in and of itself. To really trust that much dissolves the fear. Not to say it will never arise again, but it feels like eventually, with enough trust and enough faith, the fear has no power at all. And then there's a disidentification that can happen, and a different use of our mind, as opposed to obsessive fearful thinking. We can really use it in a way that can be of service to something that can benefit the world and other people. And so the first activity that we're going to do is called Remembering the Known, and it's kind of a meditative activity. So we're going to do this very briefly, just so you have an idea of it. So when you're off of this telecourse, you can do this every morning for the next week, or however long you want to practice it. You can do it your entire pregnancy, or just whenever you feel like you need to really focus on something that's grounding and brings you into the moment. So you read down and see that you take 3 slow, deep breaths. Feel your contact to the ground or to your seat. Just feel the solidity around you. Place your hands on your heart. Focus your ears inward and listen and feel for your heartbeat, for the thud of your heartbeat. It might take a few seconds to find your heartbeat, but once you do, you're going to follow its rhythm and count for 20 beats. So this is really going to take a lot of determination and focus for a lot of people, but you can do it. 20 beats. And then if you get to 20, you can start over again, or you can move on to the next bullet point, which is to drop the counting and stay focused on your heartbeat without counting. So this is kind of moving beyond the mental field and just into the somatic feeling experience. And this is something that you can do for, I say up top to set the timer for 10 minutes. You can do it as long as you would like, but I think 10 minutes is a really appropriate thing if you're busy and you just want to start the day with some kind of simple meditative activity. This is a very, very powerful exercise, and once you get familiar with it, you can be going about your day and have something come up that feels anxiety provoking for you, and you can rely on this. You can be driving to work and just put your hand on your heart while you're driving. Of course, be careful, but you can really feel your heartbeat at any time in the day that you need to, while you're jogging, while you're cooking. And this brings you into this moment. It brings you into now. It shows you what is known. What is known is that you're here, you're alive, you're breathing, your heart is beating. And if you follow that, it really can just obliterate all fear, because you're not in that realm anymore. You're really just brought into your body, into this moment. And so that's a really wonderful, wonderful exercise to do. And I want to just finish the rest of this section that I was reading before. Carrying on where we left off with this on page 6, it says, "This sense of demolition eventually subsides to leave me with a clean slate. I can choose between frailty and strength. I can see which one feels more true, more real, more life-giving, and in alignment with how I am yearning to be. I stand in a resolute knowingness, a devotion to becoming a woman unperturbed by any experience in front of her. She is deeply loving but fierce, possessing eyes of innocence and ancient wisdom. I am willing to understand what I must in order to realize this all-abiding woman that I am." So we all know who we can be, and a lot of the times our fears are just what hold us back, and it's not even our fears, it's just us not knowing what to do with our fears, and it's us being overwhelmed by them and getting tricked by them and not really learning that it's just a little confused part of us that can just be easily understood and moved through in really quite simple ways. And so this kind of brings up the issue of control and feeling, the fear that comes up around the unknown is usually a sense of powerlessness or a lack of control. But the truth is that we're not victims to fearful thinking, and we do have more control than we think we do in terms of what we think and what we choose to focus on and how we choose to direct our energy and our attention, and therefore what we choose to create and allow into our life. And so when we focus on what we want to be feeling and on what does feel good, as opposed to focusing on what feels awful and wanting it to go away, then we're really bringing more of that into our life. And so that's what the next exercise is all about. It's called We Have a Choice. It's the second activity. And it says, remember a situation or a period in your life where you were very confident or in your element or at home. Really take your time to tune into this memory, and you can do this now or after. Sometimes it can take a while to really tune into a memory that is very powerful and impactful for you. But once you get a memory, you ask yourself, what is it like to feel the most secure, mentally strong, and focused that I've ever felt before, like in this memory? Once you have deepened into the sensation, place your hand on your womb. and share this confidence, this trust, and this assuredness with your growing baby. While feeling the steadfastness, repeat out loud to yourself 3 or more times the following affirmation. I'm just going to say it one time, but it is everything I think, feel, say, and experience nourishes me and my baby. So anytime you find yourself worrying about anything, use this affirmation. And it really is so empowering. It's setting an intention and saying, you know what? I'm not even going to choose to think things that aren't nourishing for me. I'm not going to say things, I'm not going to experience things that aren't nourishing. And if I do experience things that feel difficult, I'm going to know that this is my intention, and so it must be some kind of lesson or something being learned that actually is nourishment for my family. And this really is so empowering. It shows us that we know what's best for us. We know deep down what's right for us and how to have the most nourishing life. And it's really all about us deepening into ourselves. And like I said in the introductory video, or what's all over the Loving Birth Organization website, is about really relying on this well that we have inside of us, and really honoring that we have everything we need and that we have the answers to our questions, and not that we can't seek out or get experience from other people. But if we are able to really be clear in ourselves, then we can move from a place of not needing other people to give us something that we really can only ultimately give ourselves. And so this just really brings the power back in your own hands, and it says, you know what, I'm responsible for how I feel, how I think, how I respond to what I feel, which this is so important for childbirth, and we can talk more about that later. But the next activity that's so fun that you get to do in your own time, that I actually already did, and I'll show you what I created, is kind of a vision board type thing, but it's different. It's a collage, and it's in response to these 3 bullet points that you have underneath activity 3. And so I'll give you an example of mine, and mine was kind of like on the surface. You could do something really deep and powerful for you, but it was for me, but this example is just not very deep. But it says, if there's one thing that would be beneficial for you to do or not do in the next week, what would it be? And so what I put was eat more veggies. That was just something that came up for me. I wanted to eat more vegetables this week. And so the next question, what would accomplishing this give you or make you feel? And I wrote, it would make me feel capable. And then the next question, the last one, says, create an affirmation for yourself that allows you to feel this right now. And my affirmation that came through was, I can. And so you can choose whatever you want for this, whatever is meaningful and significant for you. And it's really, the deeper that you go into this work, the more beneficial it's going to be for you. So just really be real with yourself. No one has to see your work. You don't have to share it with anyone. It's really just for you and for your baby. And so really, just put your heart into it and find all kinds of pictures and statements and phrases and anything that allows you to really feel what you're wanting to feel, what you answered in the second and the third statements about, for me, I said I wanted to feel capable, and my affirmation was I can. So I chose a bunch of pictures and images that made me feel that way. And so when you finish your collage, you're going to place it somewhere that you frequently see it. And by doing this, you're going to really start to hone this energy and your intention for your life right now.